All right, second question of the day is about gambling. Is gambling
Oh, I forgot to look at the lottery numbers.
a sin?
That's a joke. I haven't bought a lottery ticket in 20-something years.
What if it was like 2 billion? Billion with a B. What would you? Yeah, man, that's tempting, isn't it?
It is,
It is.
one thing with me is I was so money driven prior to my relationship with Jesus Christ
Yeah.
that money really isn't the stumbling block for me at this particular time. Not saying that it couldn't be. I remember watching wrestling back in the day, WWF, and remember the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, who's now an evangelist. He would say, every man has his price. Every man has his price,
Yeah.
And it was always these little, skits that he would put on about buying somebody, or whatever. But anyway, that's not really been so much my issue as far as the, I'll give you $1 billion if you. Yeah, that's not really the way. I mean, I have my own struggles. I'm not trying to sound super spiritual because we just talked about alcohol and my struggle there. So, but I get what you're saying. So that's the question: is buying a lottery ticket a sin? Is
Gambling is
going to the casino? Let's start there. Let's start with the whole casino thing.
We can, but I also would argue that when we invest in a company or we invest in stock, is that not somewhat gambling that a company is going to do well, or is that just great speculation? Is going to the casino, is that a righteous thing to do? My argument would be probably not.
Right.
I think where most of our people would probably fall in this would be, number one, lottery. Do we play the lottery?
Right.
But what about just, a couple guys getting together, going out and hitting a little round white ball and playing for, because I used to do this all the time. When I was a kid, this is how I made my money that I could buy the hamburger at the clubhouse. And, I would gamble with the little high school guys that played on the golf team, and I would go out there and I would gamble with them, and I would always have my meal paid for because I would always beat them because I would gamble. That's a tough one.
Yeah. For me, it's sort of like what we talked about a while ago with alcohol. There are some people that, I used to play golf regularly with one of my deacons at the very first church I pastored. W.T. Blair, one of the most godly men I ever met. And so we would play on this 9-hole course. You know how those little 9-hole courses work where you play the 9, then you reverse and play them backwards or whatever. And so at the turn, as you call it, when you get to after the 9th, we would always say whoever was in last place had to buy the other one a Dr. Pepper and a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. And one day I said to him as a guy, do what?
That sounds like a deal.
Yeah, it was a deal, and because that gives you that little extra energy. And the thing about it was we were each going to buy that. That happened to be both of our favorite candy and both of our favorite drinks. Yeah. So, it was like, well, we're going to be buying that anyway. Just the loser buys the other one, So it was sort of like one day I go, Is that wrong for us to be gambling like that? And he goes, well, if that leads you to leaving here and driving to Oklahoma to go to the casino, then it probably is a sin for you. But being that we can just kind of laugh it off, and you're talking about it being a nominal amount or, a very, very small amount or whatever, he goes, I don't really envision that as a sin. You just were buying mine. But if it bothers you, then it's probably a sin.
Yeah.
Is it your spirit or your conscience that is getting you? I was like, well, really, it's neither. I was just ran out of stuff to talk about and wanted to learn something from you. You know,
I mean, and it's tough because Cheryl several years ago got sent on a trip to Las Vegas, and her mom gave her $100 and said, "Hey, play the slot machines for me." And so Cheryl goes into the casino, and she gets there and she just cannot do it. In her spirit was like, she was just like, she almost like crying because she was like, I can't do this. And so she didn't. Right. Because, in her heart, she felt like that was not being a good steward of the money that her mom, her mom needed that. My mom's like, she needs that money. And so Cheryl had it in her spirit. So obviously if she would have done that against her spirit, against what God was really doing in her heart, that's a sin. Yeah. The other day I made Theo wear a Clemson shirt because we beat NC State and the loser had to wear some other team's gear. Right. I don't think that's at all. Is that gambling? Gambling on somebody's humility, because I would never want to wear an NC State shirt, right?
Well, I think that's sort of a funny thing, but and I think you can also err on the sides of being too legalistic.
Yes.
With some things where you're just like my grandmother was a very godly woman, but she also sort of made up her own rules, and so I thought it was a sin to play cards after a certain time on Friday. Because I thought that was somewhere in the Bible, thou shalt not play cards after 7:00 on Friday. I don't know where she got it from, but to her, or any game, it wasn't just that. We couldn't play any games. And she wasn't Seventh-day Adventist. She was full-blown Pentecostal. I mean, she played the piano at the Pentecostal church, man, like Jerry Lee Lewis. You should have saw her. She was awesome. But, I mean, she was very much afraid. And for her, she was married. My mother's father was not, both of my parents were alcoholics, as I said earlier, but she was always afraid that the devil would get a foothold. And so she was very adamant about things we watched on TV, and we allowed in our minds and hearts to sort of process. So I think it's sort of the same thing with gambling. It's like, a lot of people that go to the casinos, from what I've heard, are people that probably need to put that money to better use. They need to be tithing with it and giving to the church, and then paying the rent and taking care of their kids and so forth. And it's sort of the same thing if you're buying alcohol when you can't buy groceries, or you're buying cigarettes whenever you can't even provide, or lottery tickets when you can't, or paying for a tattoo whenever you really don't have the money to do that. Obviously that is a sin, and you're not being a wise steward, not just with yourself spiritually, but also with the finances that God's giving you. Yeah. So the answer to the question is, well, it all depends. And it depends on where your heart is, depends on how the Spirit's moving in your life. Is that thing, alcohol, gambling, tattoos, as we're going to talk about, is that an idol for you? Right. If you're making these things an idol, then absolutely they become sins. Anything we make as an idol becomes a sin. Yeah, well, I think you have to look at, we talk about this time, talent, treasure, right? And so Pastor Matt is in this series on us tithing, and biblical tithing and giving. Life giving. And so what you have to look at, it's not just financially what you're giving, but also your time. Is your time better spent? Like if I'm not discipling my son and my daughter, and I'm not leading my family because I'm somewhere else, whether that's I'm working 18 hours on a job, or whether I'm at the casino, or whether I'm, what I'm saying, then obviously those things have gotten a foothold into my life. And so you have to look at that time and really, is that how I want to spend my time and my talent and my treasure on those things? Yep. Well, that's good. That's good stuff. And so that's sort of where we want to fall into with the idea of, well, is gambling a sin? Why are you asking? Are you looking for us to give you you can go ahead and go? I think you need to really seek the Lord and decide whether or not that is the best pursuit of your time, talent, treasure.
Hey, thanks for watching this segment of the Mission City podcast. There is more content in the full session, so click right here to watch the full episode, and click here to subscribe and see more content like this. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.